Thank you for downloading this Real Agriculture podcast. Next thing you know the next thing. Next is Now is a short podcast discussing agriculture's emerging next-gen tech and trends as they're happening in our industry. Next is Now, presented by GFL Ag. Listen where you get your podcasts today.
For Real Agriculture, I'm Kelvin Hepner at the Crops Convention in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and pleased to be joined now by Doug Chorney, the Chief Commissioner of the Canadian Grain Commission. And Doug, you have some news, some kind of personal news that you have announced in the last day or two. Why don't you share it with our audience here as well?
Sure, I'd like to. I've announced that I'm retiring at the end of April, and I've had a wonderful opportunity to serve as Chief Commissioner, and I'm looking forward to the future.
So that would also coincide with your appointment expiring at that point, right?
Precisely. Yeah, that is the date of the appointment being completed.
Okay. So how many years have you been at the CGC now? It feels like we were just interviewing you as a farmer, Doug Chorney, or president of Keystone Ag Producers prior to joining the Grain Commission, but it's been a few years.
Yeah, it's over 7 years. In February, I had my anniversary, and so it's just been a real interesting journey. We've gone through a lot of things in the last 7 years, as everyone knows, and it's been very interesting.
So what would some of the highlights be, or the moments that stick out to you when you look back over those years?
Well, we saw the accumulation of a surplus at the CGC, which we dealt with immediately in 2017 by lowering our fees. Farmers continued to grow big crops, and we responded to that by lowering fees a second time. And then the 2021 drought occurred, which was a major setback for prairie farmers.
Looking back over your time, you were a farmer before becoming the Chief Commissioner. What can you say about the learning curve and what you learned about how the Grain Commission operates, how it provides value to industry during your time there?
It's been very enlightening to me as a producer. I thought I knew everything about grain, and it turns out I didn't know as much as I thought. And the biggest learning experience for me was meeting customers, people that buy grain from Canada every day and what they depend upon to feed their populations. And we do that very well. I think Canada is a leader in the world in terms of assurances of quality, and the CGC plays a pivotal role in making sure that that is facilitated for exporters.
So how would you describe that role, though, in terms of the value that the CGC offers the industry and producers as well?
Well, the entire grading system and our quality assurance that comes with that. Also, the market access barriers that are seeming to be increasing with world markets. We do cargo monitoring to ensure that all potential mycotoxins, heavy metals, or pesticide residues are such that they're safe for the public and international customers. And our exporters use those statements of assurance and letters of analysis every day to facilitate exports.
Okay. Do you see more of things trending in that direction with more of that type of work down the road?
I see a tendency towards a lot of jurisdictions looking at all things that are in their food and their food ingredients. We're not shipping bulk commodities, we're shipping ingredients for food and processing, and markets are seemingly more interested in knowing more about that. Okay. It's not always a bad thing. I think we have a good story to tell in Canada.
Okay. Is that potentially a competitive advantage for the Canadian industry as well?
I believe it is. I think Canada is well positioned in terms of how we react to customers that ask questions. We're very well prepared. And I always brag about the CGC Grain Research Laboratory doing work to solve problems we don't know we have yet because they're so forward-thinking. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Grain Act review as unfinished business, or that's something that's still in limbo. Are there other things or files, issues that you still see on the horizon that the Grain Commission needs to deal with, or things that you maybe hoped you would accomplish, or files that you maybe didn't, or that you still see as unfinished business at this point?
Well, we've really worked hard during this time to use the authorities within the existing act to modernize, and we've updated final quality determination, which used to be known as subject to inspector's grade and dockage, provided more flexibility there for producers. We feel that there's a lot of value there to producers to use that instrument to settle disputes, and I think we've come a long way. Our in-country presence strategy that we're unfolding to help ensure that quality assessments are done properly and that grading is done fairly has been very successful. We're not anywhere near complete, but we're just in the early days. And we've had good feedback from producers that we're feeling that perhaps there could be improvements in that area.
Producer payment security has always been a big file that the Grain Commission is involved with as well, in terms of making sure farmers get paid for grain that they have delivered. There's also been talk about reform about that for as long as I've been doing this type of thing, so that's going back quite a few years. Where is that file at in terms of, does that coincide with Grain Act review reform, or could there be other changes there?
Well, you're right. That's a very important part of what the work of the CGC, our licensing and security program. So there are things we can do within our current authorities, but for really substantive improvements or modernization, we would need Act reforms to change that significantly. However, the program does work fairly well. We've had the 3 biggest failures in the history of Canada over the past 5 years, and I'm really pleased that we were able to almost pay all of the farmers that were affected. It was 100% in 2 cases and 80% of farmers in the third case. So there were 449 farmers who received in excess of $24 million in payment for grains that they would have not been paid for had we not been in place. So the program does function. Can it be improved? Absolutely. There's always good, better, and best.
Well, thanks for your time and, of course, your service to the industry as well, Doug, and we'll look forward to where you're at next after April 30th, the end of your time at the Canadian Grain Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a real privilege to serve, and I have had a really good experience at the Grain Commission, so thank you.